Hi Soul Risers, welcome back. So as I promised, this is the second video I'll be making for today, and it's called Conquering Pain. Okay, and before we understand how to conquer pain, let's deconstruct the ideas of conquering pain. So many a times when we are in pain, especially trauma-based pain, emotional trauma-based pain, we want to help change another person or change a situation to gain victory over that trauma. If you have read the work of the famous trauma researcher, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, you will realize that in one of his most famous seminal papers is called Re-Traumatization, Re-Victimization, and Masochism. And in that paper, he basically says that people who have experienced early childhood trauma, they end up putting themselves in situations that make them re-experience that trauma, just so they can feel validated. And not just that, but they also so they find an opportunity to overcome that trauma. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone was sexually abused as a child, and so when the child grows up, they put themselves in very bad relationships, or relationships where they are abused in other ways, or in emotional, physical, or sexual ways, and that they would stick to that relationship and not say I don't deserve it and move ahead because they feel they deserve that. It's validating to them, and they also have this attachment to conquering that. Now they're not young anymore, they're old, so they have that informed they make that informed decision to overcome the trauma at a subconscious level, and they stick with that abusive person. So the abuse victim always feels that they can conquer it, but eventually it just makes the whole situation worse. So this paper is a very interesting paper because it kind of touches upon the dynamics that a victim of abuse tends to repeat in his or her life, and how a person can, put themselves in bad situations just because it feels so validating to their sense of self-worth. So I'll give you an example of a study that was done. So in this study, they took a bunch of people who had past history of trauma, and then they took a bunch of people who did not have a past history of trauma, and they told them, let's say your car is parked in a dark alley and it's really late in the night, and you're going to head back home, and there are two ways to get to your car. The first way is you could either go through that dark alley, which is very risky. You might get robbed, you might get attacked. You could either pick that way, which is shorter and quicker but more dangerous, or you could go around the block, which is more well lit, and then just get to your car from up close where there is more light. And so they found in the study that people who had history of trauma, they ended up picking the dark, dangerous alley to get to the car, versus other people who did not have a history of trauma that chose to choose the safer route. And so that speaks volumes about people who have been traumatized in the past, have a tendency to be less afraid or put themselves in more risky situations. In fact, there is a book called Treating the Survivor of Childhood Sexual Abuse, and it talks about how these kids, they have, when they grow up and they become adults, they have a way of eroticizing fear. And so there is this common theme of like enjoying that you find fear thrilling, because it kind of like validates you, and you're chasing it to overcome whatever trauma there was. So it's a little counterintuitive, and it's and it might not make sense for everyone, but this is sort of somewhat of the dynamics to a large extent that a person with past trauma history re-experiences in their life. And so let's get back to the idea of conquering pain. Okay, so as I told you, people who have been traumatized, they try to conquer pain in the current situation as adults by helping other people. But you have to understand that it's all begins with you. So before we dive into this, I want you to make me a promise that you believe that you yourself are the student and the teacher. So observe yourself and also teach yourself. You are both a student and a teacher. Keep that in mind, okay? So let's deconstruct the ideas of conquering and pain, okay? So what is conquering? First thing to understand is when you use the word conquering, right? It's mostly used like, oh, this country conquered this one, or oh, look, I conquered my fear. So there's always a component of something taking over something else, or something else having to be erased in order for that thing to replace that thing that erased it. And so conquering pain means erasing those pain associated emotions with what you prefer, which is peace, joy, love, whatever you prefer. Okay, so conquering is erasing and replacing something that is undesirable with something that you prefer and desire. Okay, so now that we got that concept clear, we're going to move into defining pain. So what is pain, right? Now that is a very tricky question, because first of all, pain is such a subjective feeling, and now I'm talking about emotional pain, not physical pain. So pain is a very subjective concept. Everyone feels pain differently, copes with pain differently, and it's in the subjective experience that makes it definable or easier to understand for yourself. So in general, pain is something that can be felt in different forms. So people who feel emotional pain, they most often feel a very heavy feeling in their chest, like a heavy sensation. Sometimes it could also be like a heavy, clingy, tight, clenching, knotty type of feeling. It's not a pleasant feeling. It's almost like someone is sitting on your chest, or someone is like crushing you, or you're really clinging on to something. So let's say someone hurt you or someone rejected you, and now you're like, you hold that grudge, right? What is a grudge? Like holding on to something and it weighs you down. So that's basically the essence of pain, and holding something tight. It's almost like there's an energetic block that you feel, or there is like an attachment, like an attachment clutch, or like it's very like a knot. It's a very unpleasant feeling, if you know what I mean. And it's a subjective experience, and usually this is how it's felt across different people. So how do we conquer pain? When we are in pain, we try to hold it even tighter, right? To conquer, we want to conquer it, but then we're not able to overcome it because we're holding so tightly to it, and we're not able to like unglue ourselves from that feeling. It's almost like, you know, when there are oil spills in the ocean, the oil sticks to the innocent animal's skin or fur, right? And it's so hard to like take the oil out because it's so sticky. It's like it's almost like really hard to get it off you. So it's kind of a pain attachment, right? And it's hard to get out of it, and you feel like it repeats over and over again if you're sort of stuck in that pain pattern. And so what is the solution? So the solution is more simple than you think it would be, and the solution can be understood in 2 words. It's let go. Letting go is the solution to conquering pain. Okay, so when you hold something super tight and you're trying to overcome it, it won't it won't help. But the simple thing to conquer pain is just let it go. Okay, so how do you let something so sticky just let it go, right? True conquering is letting go, because conquering, like I told you, is erasing and replacing. And so when you, whatever that pain feels like, it's like holding tightly onto it. And when you let it go, it's like you're automatically erasing that, whatever is sticking to you. And then that creates space for the feelings and emotions and desires that you wish to experience. Replace that sticky, disgusting sensation. Okay, so there are some essential steps to learning how to let go of pain, but the key solution is letting go. And now we're gonna dive into what are some of the steps that help you let go. So how do you let go? How do you let go of this tight, clingy feeling that you've been experiencing and it doesn't leave you? Well, it seems like one of the hardest things to do, right? How can you just exit that trauma or hurt from your system that penetrates every inch of you? Well, you start by changing the story you tell yourself. And be aware of the story you choose to tell yourself. You start by telling yourself that it's much simpler to let go than you thought it would be. So step one, change your narrative. Change the story you choose to tell yourself. And you start by telling yourself that letting go is the most simplest thing ever. It's like opening your hands and almost like allowing breeze to clean the surface. Okay, so it's that simple. Step one, change the narrative. Change the story you tell yourself. All I have to do is open my hand, open my heart, feel the resistance of letting go leave me. Okay? Now, step two is engaging in what I call as meditative prayer, okay? How many of you have heard of the word meditative prayer? Or how many of you pray here? So, a prayer is sort of the conversation you have with the higher power, right? You could call it God, you could call it nature, you could call it universe. So, whatever that concept, that higher consciousness means to you, you are having a conversation with it. You could share your feelings with it, you could express gratitude to it, and you could seek guidance from it, right? So meditative prayer is you having a conversation. A traditional prayer is you having a conversation with a higher power, but meditative prayer is creating that space where you receive the sort of conversation from a higher power. You receive the message from your higher consciousness, whatever you may call it, whatever you may believe it to be, but it is something that you receive. And in order to receive, you have to create a space. And now I'm going to teach you how to do that. So they say that prayer is you talking to God, but meditation is when God talks to you. So how do you do a meditative prayer? You sit in a place that you feel calms you down. Focus on your breathing, the basics, right, of any meditation. And then you ask intelligent, empowering questions. This is something that Michael Bernard Beckwith talks about. And if you're familiar with him, you must have heard of the envisioning process. So anyways, that is in another video, but we'll just focus on what meditative prayer is and how you do it. So you ask intelligent questions, right? Think not like, why me? Not questions that put you in a victim consciousness mode, like, oh, I feel so bad, like, why does this always happen to me? These are not intelligent questions. These are like very like self-defeating questions. You have to ask questions like, what is the purpose of me experiencing this in my life right now? What is trying to emerge through this experience in my life? Or what is the nature, the quality of this pain? What was the time when I first ever experienced this pain, and why does it keep coming up? Like, what is the value behind it? So very empowering type of questions that help you find a higher purpose or some type of like meaningful purpose behind it. And so some of the empowering questions could be, what is the purpose of the pain? What is the nature, quality, or feeling of this pain? And what was it like when I first felt it? Now, the key is that once you ask yourself this question, you kind of breathe that question out into an empty, calm space. So when your eyes are closed, focus on the eyelids and the sensation of light that you feel, that you can sense through your eyelids, right? So feel that and give yourself that room, that space, that calm, whatever you call it, like that moments of calmness, right? And let this question float into that space, and then just for a few seconds focus and clear your mind. It's almost like, you know, when you see the tarmac where planes land, the tarmac has to be cleared so the plane can land. So for a second, imagine that the tarmac of your mind is clear so you can receive the message like the plane landing. Okay, so try it out for a few seconds and be in a receptive mode, almost like you're awaiting the response to come to you. And do not let go, do not open your eyes until you receive something that you completely agree with and it makes you feel lighter. Step 3 and the last step. So step 1, change the narrative, change the story you tell yourself into something that helps you move forward and upward. Step 2, use meditative prayer to ask questions and create a space, use focused attention to create a few seconds of that empty space in your mind so you could receive the answer. And when the answer comes, it meets you with a high level of agreement from yourself, and you feel lighter, you feel like it's helped you in some way. And that's when you open your eyes, or that's when you know that, you know, something meaningful has come out of this exercise. The last but not the least, use guided imagery. For those who have never heard of this word before, guided imagery is the use of your imagination in pictures or other forms where you create visuals that help you see and feel those abstract thoughts and ideas in tangible forms, so you can now carry them around in the way you want it. So those thoughts and ideas that are abstract, they become tangible when you visualize it. So you visualize the pain, right? How can you use guided imagery to see yourself letting go? So how do you conquer pain? You let go. So visualize using guided imagery that let's say you have the pain, the sensation of pain is something that's very like a clingy, knotty thing, right? And just imagine, visualize that the sunshine is coming up, and then as the sun comes up, it's almost that clingy thing. It's like snow. It evaporates, like it's melting away and then it evaporates. It's almost like the sun is absorbing it and it's like getting out of your system. So try to do activities of that sort that make you feel like your pain is being dissolved and you're letting it go. It's like slipping away. It's almost like, you know, something like when rain falls on your hands and it just slides through. Like imagine something like that, whatever tickles your fancy. Like imagine whatever works for you in visualizing what letting go is for you. Okay, last but not the least, create a take-home message. Okay, if you've heard of what mental heuristics are, these are things that when you have like a word or something, it activates the whole memory of that situation. So so create a take-home message like the word trust, surrender, or the word it's not my job, or God has my back, something like that. So step 3, again, it's when you use words that are sort of, you make your take-home message, then as soon as you start feeling that painful sensation again, it's a work in progress. It's not just going to disappear. You have to do this activity over and over again until you feel comfortable in letting go whenever it comes up, and it sort of becomes automatic. So create a take-home message. Let's say trust. Okay, I use the word trust. So anytime I start feeling pain, I will visualize the word trust in like big letters, just like the New Yorker building over there. I'm gonna picture it in big red words like trust. And then as soon as I say the word trust, I'm going to be reminded of this whole exercise I did, how good and light I felt after the exercise. And instead of repeating the whole exercise again, just the word trust ignites that feeling of relaxation within me, because now you've sort of connected the dots, you've associated the two together. So to summarize how to conquer pain, letting go is the solution. How do you let go? 4 steps. Step 1, change the narrative. Change the story you tell yourself. Tell yourself that it's more simple to let go than you would imagine. Step 2, use meditative prayer to ask empowering questions and receive insights and answers that help bring peace in your heart and a feeling of lightness. Step 3, use guided imagery to really visualize the idea of letting go in tangible form, okay? And 4, create a take-home message like I trust, surrender, God has my back, something like that. That the minute you feel bad, you start feeling bad again at some point in your life, you just think of that word and it reactivates your feelings of relaxation as you felt after you had done this exercise. So try these 4 steps out and let me know how it feels. Thank you so much for participating and watching this video, and I'm super excited to see how what you all have to say about it. Please do watch other videos of mine and subscribe to my channel for more invigorating videos. Bye, Soul Risers. Have a good day. Bye.